My lesson was on breaking down shapes to find the total area, and I did it by using a Promethean board. So I was at Westridge Elementary, and the classroom that I was actually in was a 5th, 6th combination classroom, but for math and all the other subjects, or not all of them, but most of them, they would rotate. And so at the time, there was a 6th grade remediation class, the ones who had taken the area test and not passed. So I was teaching, there was probably about 12 students in the class. Pretty much the only technology they had was a Promethean board, but it was really nice, and I found that it was, useful in order for the students to participate in the lesson. My plan was I wanted to be able to engage them better by letting them actually use the Promethean board rather than just having them watch and not do anything about it, because I feel like in order to actually get them interested and focused, it helps best if they are actually doing it. And I figured there weren't too many students, so it should work pretty well. I started by giving them the area of a rectangle, base times height, and then I did this cool, had half of the rectangle move so that they're two triangles, and therefore showing them that area of a triangle is half of the area of a rectangle, so it's 1/2 base times height. Then I gave them this shape on the left, and I kind of modeled that for them. I showed them, we talked about how you need to decompose big shapes into smaller ones, so I broke that into a rectangle and triangle, as you can see on the right, and the shapes flew in from the different sides, which kind of helped them, so it wasn't just like, oh, can you see it? Like, they actually were able to physically see the two different shapes rather than having to picture it in their minds. Whoa. I then put this shape up and had the students, except it didn't have the yellow line on it yet, and I had the students kind of point out where on this shape they would draw a line to break up the shape into more manageable shapes, and they were able to put it where the yellow line was, and so that was kind of helpful. It was a little bit more scaffolding. They didn't have to do it by themselves. It wasn't too difficult, but they were able to get that idea across. The last big part of the presentation of the lesson, I guess, was this odd shape. They started out, I gave them this shape on the Promethean board, and then I also gave them each a graph paper with that shape drawn on it, and I had them decompose it on their paper, and I told them that they would be able to come up and break it up on the Promethean board, but only after they had done it on their paper first. So I thought that that would be helpful in order to let them actually do it and to get them excited so that they would do their assignment. And it worked, because they all decomposed it on their paper quickly, and then I let individual students come up and draw the yellow lines, as you can see on the bottom one, and each different student did a line, and then we would ask what shape they made, and then they calculated the area of each of the sections. I wanted to have them individually calculate the entire thing, which all it would have required would be adding them together also, but we ran out of time, so we did that part together, but that still worked. I thought the lesson went pretty well. The students were quite engaged because it was something interesting, and they were able to use the Promethean board. Not a lot, but they were still able to go up. It was something that was not just like a worksheet or equations, and so it was something a little bit different and interactive. things that could have been a little bit better was just a little bit of the pacing, just going a little bit quicker, because I ran out of time at the end. And on one of the examples that I had on my PowerPoint, when I popped it up, switch to the next slide, it had the answer on it, so we kind of skipped that one. But I think next time I would have definitely had more examples and planned to do a little bit more time on it and explain better before we started that you add the different sections, the different areas, and then put it all together, add them together, because they seemed a little bit confused at that when they started to do it. But overall, I think it was a pretty good lesson, and they were definitely engaged for the most part, because of the technology.